Well, David Lang, congratulations on your Oscar nomination for Best Original
Thank you
Song
very much.
for, you're welcome, and it's for Simple Song number 3 from the movie Youth. And before the Oscar nominations were announced, you were up for a Golden Globe and you were nominated for a Critics' Choice Award also. So had you been anticipating the announcement of the Oscar nominations?
Well, I was anticipating the announcement, but I wasn't anticipating hearing my name called. So I was very excited, and I'm very, very grateful to Paolo Sorrentino to make a movie like this that needs a composer like me, and that shows the song in such a good light. I think that's really what all of this means. I'm very, very, very happy.
And a lot of the story of the film revolves around the song that you wrote and what it means to the main character. He was a composer who has to come to terms with that song over the course of the movie. But you actually wrote the song before the script was even finished. What was that like writing a song for a film that was still so informed?
It was very strange because, as you know, usually what happens is everyone is done, right? So the script is done and the shooting is done and the editing is done. And as the composer, you are the last thing. You see an almost finished project and you have to add the last little details that keep it all together. So when you write music that way, you have something really to respond to. This was very different. This because there's so much music which is seen performed on screen. The cows, the candy wrappers, the song at the end, all the boy rehearsing. Um, I had to be done before they could finish the script. And so all I had to go on were the kind of vague instructions in the script about what might happen and my very philosophical conversations with Paolo about what a composer can do, what the music might mean to Michael Caine's character, how music might change, but they were very, very speculative and very strange. So I didn't have anything to go on, really. I had very little to go on. All I really needed to be emotional. He wanted to have a very powerful emotional reaction. And also, I had this idea that I got from the script that this song had to have a bunch of emotions in it at the same time, that it had to be capable of showing you what he felt like when he was young and happy and optimistic and in love and has his life in front of him. And it also has to be capable of showing you who he is at the end of his life when he is not so happy and not so optimistic and his love has changed and he's looking back on a lifetime of highs and lows. It had to be capable of showing all of that. And that's basically what I had to go on, which is not that much.
Yeah, having so little to go on in terms of actual completed material from the film, how closely did you work with director Paolo Sorrentino? Was he closely involved in the process in terms of getting what he felt the story and the character needed from that song and from that music?
I asked him a lot of questions about what he wanted, and he was very vague about it. He said he wanted to have an emotional reaction. And I said, well, from reading the draft of the script, I can see at the end, it could be, he could be miserable. He could be happy. He could be proud of playing in front of the Queen. He could feel like his life had been a failure. I mean, there are all these things that you could show that would be emotional at the end. So I know you want it to be emotional. Which emotion? And he said, oh, I don't care. You will figure it out. So what happened was I would just sort of try to imagine myself in that situation and I would write things. And I sent him 3 demos. One of them, he said, oh, it has to be more emotional. One of them, he said, I am crying a little and I need to cry a lot. And then one he wrote back finally, and all he said was, oh, David, I am crying. And then I knew that I had it. But it was interesting because he wanted something, he wanted a certain reaction in himself to happen emotionally, but he didn't know how to get there. He didn't know which musical experience would take him to that place. So I had to sort of guess what would take him to the place he would be satisfied. And I think that's why I had to do it so early in the process, because I think he couldn't finish writing Michael Caine's character until he knew which emotion he was aiming for, until he knew what the emotional universe of Michael Caine at the end would be. And that's why I was done a year before everybody else did their jobs. I was done very early in the process.
Now, because not only is your music very important to the story of the film, it's also the story of a famous composer, and this is one of his great works, and so there's a lot of buildup before we hear the whole thing in its entirety at the end of the film. So, did you feel any pressure from that? I mean, the film wasn't finished, hadn't been finished writing yet, but did you feel any sort of pressure that you need to write something also that has to live up to this character and this story at the very end?
I felt two things. I mean, the first thing is just from reading the script, I knew that if you spend an entire movie talking about how great this music is at the end of the movie, you're setting yourself up for a potential fall, right? The music has got to be really good because you've been talking about it as good music for the whole movie. That was a lot of pressure, but I'm used to that because, I try to do good music all the time, right? I try this in my normal life. But the other pressure is I really wanted it to feel authentic. I really wanted it to feel like music is such a large part of this movie and such a large part of how this character is revealed to us and how he talks to himself and how he feels about himself. And I felt like as a composer, this is a great opportunity to show the real world how composers actually live, how composers actually think and feel. This whole idea that it's difficult for him to talk to his daughter about his emotions, that his best friend and he have no conversations that have any emotional weight at all. They just tell each other nice things. But in his music, he tells himself the truth. This seems very honest to me, and it seems very accurate. I do think that this is the way composers think about their lives. That we can live in the world, we can do these things, we have these relationships. In our music, what we're really trying to do is to be honest with ourselves.
True to the title of the song, Simple Song Number 3, the lyrics are pretty simple and direct. I feel complete, I lose all control, I'll be there. What inspired that approach to the lyrics?
It's interesting because I wanted everyone to feel like they were in an emotional situation. And the weird thing about the movie was that it seemed like if the song was too specific to his wife, I wouldn't care that much about it, right? I wanted it to feel universal, and yet I wanted it to feel special for him at the same time. And I didn't really know how to solve that with the lyrics. I asked Paolo, oh, what do you want the lyrics to be? It's an opera thing. Should it be in Italian? What should the song be about? Should it be a love song? Whatever. And he said, oh, you figure it out. So I thought his relationship with his wife is the central thing that he is trying to show in this song. He's young, he's in love, he's writing this just for his wife. He doesn't want to share it with anyone else. And I thought that's a little bit like a whisper. It's something that you say to your loved one that you want to make sure no one else can hear. And you lower your voice so quietly so the person you are whispering to knows that this is only for them. This is so personal. I don't want anyone else to hear it. It's just a whisper. So I thought, what is it that someone could whisper to their loved one that would still be powerful after all of those years and would be universal? And I thought, whenever I'm interested in trying to figure out what is universal, I go to the internet. And I thought, I want to know what everyone whispers to their loved ones. So I Googled the sentence, when you whisper my name. And I got all of these answers of what people feel like when their loved one whispers their name. Most of them I couldn't use, and I sculpted it. I cut out most of them because most of them were about individual people, or they were pornographic, or they were about, mentioning products or, individuals that I didn't, want to deal with. I wanted to be as universal as possible. So all the ones that seemed like they were things that we all might say to a loved one that we wouldn't want anyone else to hear, those are the ones I kept. And that's why the first part of the song is this list of these things that I feel. And then the very end of the song, she just says, when you whisper my name. She answers the question. I feel complete when you whisper my name. I lose all control when you whisper my name. I really thought in that way, the weird thing about the internet is, it's a way people share things that they don't have any trouble sharing them with billions of people around the world, that they might actually be too personal to say to one person face to face. So there's this odd thing that happens the way, and I just thought I could find something incredibly intimate in this very strangely public place.
The song is performed by the soprano Sumi Jo. Was it always written with her in mind? At what point did you sort of have her in mind for the song?
Sumi Jo was in mind from the very beginning, and Paolo was very specific that the singer had to be an opera singer, and so and the idea was that, I think, at least I never spoke with Paolo about it, but I think the reason why is because pop music has to be popular immediately, and pop music that lasts, right? There is pop music which will last and will stand the test of time, but it still has to be popular immediately. It has to have an immediate reaction, and that's what you pay attention to. I think it was very important to him that it be classical music that the composer is involved in, because classical music has a very long view. We study music from hundreds of years ago, and that's how we love our field, right? And I think that's why he wanted it to be opera, because opera is specifically about how you have new people coming to breathe new life into something that happened 100 years ago, or 200, or 300, or in the case of opera, even 400 years ago. How do these people keep those old things alive? And that's the issue of this movie, is what's the relationship of an artistic idea from a long time ago to the people who are alive still trying to breathe life into it. So his idea from the beginning was that it had to be an opera singer. And I think that he was very interested in Sumi Jo. We talked about other singers, including Sumi Jo, but I think he was interested in Sumi Jo, first of all, because she's incredible on stage. She looks incredible. She's an amazing actor. And she also is someone who is a superstar of the field. One of the things we talked about, Paolo and me, was that if Michael Caine's character is, as a great composer, all his collaborators have to be great in what they do. He can't just sing with a singer. It has to be one of the greatest singers. It can't just be, I've got a great violin player who lives in my neighborhood. It has to be an international superstar violinist, because he is an international superstar conductor in the movie. So we have Sumi Jo, who's really one of the great opera voices of our time. And we have the violinist who's played by Victoria Milova, who's one of the great violinists of our time, who lives in London, Russian born. And this was, again, a way that Paolo and I were trying to build authenticity into this character, so you would feel like it was a real musical experience.
Now, having written the music for the film before the film was actually made, what were your thoughts when you actually did finally see the finished product and how the music was ultimately incorporated into it?
It was shocking. I have to say, it was totally shocking to see this movie, because I was done very far. I was done before it was cast. I was done before the script was finished and the cast was hired, and I was just done. I was on to other things, and I had sort of, in a way, forgotten that this thing was going to happen. And I knew what the music accomplished in my studio or in my head. But the first time I saw the film for real was at the Cannes Film Festival, with all these thousands of incredibly excited people, everyone dressed up beautifully. The screen is 1,000 feet high, and the color is unbelievably bright. and the speakers are really loud. It was very moving I mean, I knew the song had power because I had written it that way. I knew that it had emotional power, but I had never seen it. So I wasn't really ready to see it be that powerful and that emotional. I was really very, very happy.
Was it, that kind of experience of experiencing the music, your own music, through a film? Was that a very different experience than other compositions you do and other ways you re-experience your own music?
Well, to me, the biggest difference is when I write music for myself, or when I write an opera, or when I write an orchestra piece. I am ultimately the person who has to be happy. Like I am the most important person who has to be satisfied, right? So I go to an opera and other people like it, they don't like it, whatever. I have to like it. The weird thing for me about the film experience, which is a little strange to get used to, is it doesn't matter what I think or what anybody else thinks. The director has to like it, you know? So I'm making this thing and I am offering it to Paolo in the hope that he will find it satisfying to him. So an argument that I would make with myself, oh, that's there because it ties up this, or that's there because it makes me happy. I am very happy on this film and I really love doing it, but my happiness is really off the topic, right? The only person who needed to be happy was Paolo. So, and that is very different.
Now, the Oscar nomination that you received, it's not your first awards recognition. You're a Pulitzer Prize winner for music. You won in 2008 for your composition, The Little Match Girl, Passion. How does an awards experience like that compare to now this film awards circuit that the film has been on and the song has been on?
There is no comparison. I loved getting the Pulitzer Prize, and it was really fantastic for me. And it was a real highlight of my career. It was fantastic. Um, but the interesting thing about film is that more people care about film than care about classical music. And film, classical music is very specific to a certain culture. So there's a Western classical music world that likes this music. The potential audience for a film is much larger than that audience. So to me, the exciting thing about this is that a certain number of people know about me and know about the music that I do, and I've been able to reach them so far. In this film, the possibility of reaching billions of people exists. There's so many more people who are interested in movies, and that's very inspiring to me. I love the idea that I may have something to say to a larger number of people than I've been saying it to so far.
Well, I want to congratulate you again on the Oscar nomination and on the film, and I hope it does bring your music to more of the world, like you're hoping with this film medium.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.